have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, August 26, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella. Starting with the weather report. Clouds and sun today, a high of 80. Partly cloudy tonight with a thunderstorm in spots toward dawn, low of 65. Times of clouds and sun tomorrow with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm. Breezy in the afternoon, a high of 78, low of 62. For Friday, clouds breaking, a shower, high 73, low 54. For Saturday, partly sunny and pleasant, high 76, low 59. Sunday, clouds and sun, high of 80, low 66. Monday, a couple of thunderstorms, high of 81, low 64. And for Tuesday, some sun and showers around, a high of 72, low 59. Pollen count remains high. Sunrise today was at 6:33 a.m. and sunset tonight is at 8 o'clock p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Our opening story. Sabres announced sellout of season tickets for 26-27. Team riding wave after winning title in Atlantic Division. It's officially a sellout on season tickets for the Buffalo Sabres. Riding the wave of earning their first berth in the Stanley Cup playoffs since 2011 and winning the NHL's Atlantic Division title, the Sabres announced Tuesday that their allotment of season tickets is sold out for the 26-27 season. The Sabres have reached a high-water mark of sorts, as this year is the first time since 26-17 that the team has sold out inventory of season tickets. The Sabres open the season with a little more than 5 weeks when they play October 1st at Columbus, then host the Chicago Blackhawks in their home opener October 3rd at KeyBank Center. The Sabres confirmed that they have sold 14,000 season tickets for this season, an uptick from the 2025-26 when they sold 9,000 season tickets. KeyBank Center holds a capacity of 19,070. Each of the 32 NHL teams will play an 84-game schedule in the regular season this year, which includes 42 home games. NHL teams had previously played 82-game schedules, which included 41 home games. Attendance in 25-26 reflected the popularity of interest in the Sabres as they completed their most successful season in recent years. The Sabres had 24 total sellouts of their 41 home games in the regular season, including 18 consecutive sellouts in the final 18 games of the regular season, which was the longest sellout streak for the franchise since 2011-12. The 24 sellouts in 24-26 was also the most for the Sabres since the 2011-12 regular season, and tickets for the Sabres' 7 home playoff games in the first round against Montreal at KeyBank Center also sold out quickly. All 7 postseason games at KeyBank Center were sellouts. Our fans are at the heart of everything we do, and the response we've seen from them heading into this season has been remarkable. Selling out our season ticket inventory speaks to their dedication and loyalty, Pete Coelho, the Sabres Sabres president of business operations, said in a statement released by the team. We don't take that level of support for granted, and we remain committed to delivering an experience that reflects the passion they bring to our organization. As a result of the sellout of season tickets packages, the Sabres now have opened a wait list for season tickets, which requires a $100 deposit. This is the first active season ticket wait list for the Sabres since 2016-17, when the Sabres capped their sales. Season ticket sales have gradually dropped in the last 10 years. Single-game tickets are also available for the Sabres home games this season. We're incredibly fortunate to have such a dedicated group of season ticket members and plan buyers, and we can't thank them enough for their support. Cenk Vernon, the Sabres Chief Commercial Officer, said in a statement, "Their commitment to our organization plays an important part in creating the energy in and around KeyBank Center, and we can't wait to experience that again this season." Linda?
Thank you, Larry. No charges filed as police close probe into death of Oliver's son. The Harris County Sheriff's Office in Houston has closed its investigation into the drowning death of the 1-year-old son of Buffalo Bills defensive lineman Ed Oliver without filing criminal charges. The incident was thoroughly investigated by detectives, and their findings were no criminal findings. The case is now closed. The Sheriff's Office said in a statement provided to the Buffalo News on Tuesday morning. The Associated Press was first to report the news. The News had initially reached out to the Sheriff's Office a month ago seeking information regarding its investigation into the incident. When contacted again late Monday, the Sheriff's Office provided its statement to the News and instructed the news organization to resubmit a public records request for documents related to the investigation. Oliver's son was found unresponsive by his parents in a swimming pool at Oliver's home in the Houston suburb of Huffman around 6:10 p.m. June 28th. The child was taken to a local hospital where he was declared dead about an hour later. The Harris County Sheriff's Office issued a statement at about 10 that evening, reporting a drowning but without naming Oliver or providing details about the incident. However, grainy video footage was published shortly after the incident, showing a distraught man who looked like Oliver sitting on a curb while speaking to and being comforted by a sheriff's deputy. The News initially contacted the Sheriff's Office on July 29th seeking additional information on the incident, including the name of the child, the address of the incident, the name of the property owner, and whether anyone had been criminally charged in the drowning. The Sheriff's Office directed the News to file a public records request with the agency. The Sheriff's Office on August 12th informed the News it was seeking permission from the Texas Attorney General's Office to reject the newspaper's request on the grounds that releasing this information would jeopardize an ongoing criminal investigation. The statement issued this week doesn't state when the investigation was closed into the death of Oliver's son, also named Ed, who was a few days shy of his second birthday. Word of the drowning death of Oliver's son began to spread on social media late Friday night. No news organization reported on Oliver's connection to the June 28th drowning until an NFL network reporter did so on Saturday. Brandon Beane, the Bills' general manager and president of football operations, offered the first official confirmation soon after. On behalf of the entire Buffalo Bills organization, we want to publicly express our condolences to Ed Oliver and his family on a devastating loss of their son. It is an unthinkable tragedy for any parent. We will continue to support Ed and his family as we all grieve this tragic loss. Oliver, a defensive tackle who has played for the Bills since he was a first-round draft pick for the organization in 2019, showed up for the start of Bills training camp but has not spoken to the media since his son died. He missed Saturday's preseason game with an injury. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Effort to address canopy gaps in city branches out. Nearly 300 trees are planted, but some go to leafy streets. Nearly 300 trees have been planted in Buffalo this year through a federally funded program intended to expand the canopy in neighborhoods with the fewest trees. But dozens were planted on streets that were already tree-lined, according to city data and interviews with homeowners. The city is using an $8 million U.S. Forest Service grant awarded in 2024 to plant 2,500 to 3,000 trees by May 2029 through the Buffalo Equity and Street Trees program, known as BEST. The program is intended to address a stark disparity. The smaller a Buffalo neighborhood's white population, the fewer trees it is likely to have, according to an analysis by American Forests, a national nonprofit that advocates for urban forests. Tree cover is also less extensive in neighborhoods with higher poverty rates. The benefits of urban trees. Buffalo News reporting in 2024 found that areas of the city with abundant trees were about 3 to 6 degrees cooler on a hot day than areas without tree cover. Trees can also reduce stormwater runoff and provide physical and mental health benefits. To guide the planting, the city created a map identifying priority areas. They include nearly the entire east side and portions of the west side, stretching from Riverside and West Hurdle to the lower west side, as well as parts of North Park and University Heights. Parkside, Elmwood, Bidwell, Allentown, and much of downtown were not designated as priority areas. Trees are plentiful in these parts of the city. The city has planted 274 trees through the best program so far this year, according to city data. About 38 trees, roughly 14% of the best program plantings this year, were planted outside priority areas, a Buffalo News analysis found. Residents must request trees through the city's 311 system before they are planted. The city has a backlog of requests and an estimated 30,000 vacant locations where street trees could be planted. The city can fulfill requests outside the priority areas using its general fund or other sources. The federal BEST grant, however, is specifically intended to pay for trees in underserved neighborhoods with sparse canopies. Steve Bocelli, Interim Parks Commissioner, said in a written statement that the city's focus this year was on resident and commercial requests involving city-owned property and Buffalo Public Schools locations. But most of the trees planted outside city priority areas were not on city or school property. One best-funded tree was planted in front of a house on Ashland Avenue, a tree with one of the densest tree canopies in the cities. Two were planted in front of homes on Inwood Place and another on Potomac Avenue, all just east of tree-lined Chapin Parkway, the data shows. Other trees outside priority areas were planted in front of homes or businesses in University Heights, Central Park, Allentown, and North Park. On the east side, trees were planted at a mix of residential locations, parks, and schools. Community outreach. Community outreach is a central part of the BEST program because some residents fear tree roots will damage water lines or sidewalks, or that falling branches will strike cars and homes. The city allocated about $656,000 of the grant to the University at Buffalo to oversee the outreach effort. UB recruited 12 ambassadors, mainly residents of East Side and West Side neighborhoods, and put them through a 4-week training program on the benefit of trees. Renata Tony, one of the ambassadors, described the group as a network of people deeply passionate about trees. She said residents' concerns are rooted in past experiences, but planning practices have improved. It makes sense why people formed those opinions. There were trees back then that did a lot of damage, and that's all folks remember, Tony said. But I think we've learned from our mistakes. We got smarter and don't plant those kind of trees anymore that cause all those problems. The ambassadors began their work in early May. Requests for trees have increased sharply this year, although it is unclear how much of the growth can be attributed to their outreach. Residents submitted 73 requests through the city's 311 system in April, followed by 124 in May, 117 in June, and 104 in July, according to city data. The city also has received 475 requests so far this year, compared with 122 in all of 2025. Yolanda Maple Caudle, who lives on Newburgh Avenue, requested a tree through 311 earlier this year and said she is pleased with the result. I lost a huge tree in my yard during the big October 2006 storm and wanted one back ever since, she said. I love my new tree. It's so good for the environment, and it's a nice size. Jennifer Gorski, Vice President of the East Lovejoy Coalition of Neighbors, said the city will need to demonstrate that it can care for all the trees after they are planted. Bocelli said the city has spent $54,795 to water the 274 trees planted this spring. Reagan Lawn Care and Landscaping received an estimated $88,677 contract funded through the BEST program to plant and water about 1,400 trees. Trees are very useful for us, and we definitely need them, Gorski said. But a lot of people don't want them in their yards, and I just don't see the city getting around that. She said residents' confidence in the program will depend on the city's long-term commitment to maintaining the trees. The city doesn't keep up with the trees, and then the people have to deal with the consequences, Gorski said. It's great the city is doing this, but what's their long-term plan? We need to know. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:14. On to Today in History. August 26th. In 1883, Mount Krakatoa, an island volcano in what is now Indonesia, entered its catastrophic eruption phase. The major eruption came the next day and was heard as far away as Australia. The resulting tsunamis killed an estimated 36,000 people, and the dust affected global weather for several years afterward. In 1918, mathematician Catherine Coleman Goebel Johnson was born in West Virginia. Her calculations were critical to NASA's crewed, CREWED, space travel. In 1920, U.S. Secretary of State Bainbridge Colby certified the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. In 1957, Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev announced that his country had successfully tested an intercontinental ballistic missile. He gave no details, saying only it could be fired into any part of the world. In 1968, the Democratic National Convention began in Chicago, and with it, massive protests against the Vietnam War. Chicago Mayor Richard Daley called on 5,000 state National Guard members and 6,500 federal troops, according to Time, and the convention was the most violent in U.S. history. And in 1978, Cardinal Albino Luciani, Patriarch of Venice, was elected Pope John Paul I. Called the Smiling Pope, he died of a heart attack 33 days later. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The local Buffalo News editorial. Action on buses. School board must pivot and finalize NFTA transportation deal for students. The Buffalo School Board is justified in demanding answers about a new transit contract, but the district cannot allow its own poor planning to jeopardize transportation for 10,000 students. As reported by the news, Ben Sugimoto, the district's proposed contract with the Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority to take high schoolers to and from school this year was removed from the August 19th meeting agenda by the Buffalo School Board. Board members had good reason to balk. They learned the proposed 5-year, $81 million contract had been added to the agenda only 5 hours before the meeting. They also lacked answers to basic questions about what the district would receive for its money. However, time is running out. If the school board does not approve the contract by September 1st, and the district does not identify another public or private transportation alternative for its roughly 10,000 high school students, students would have to find their own transportation to school when the new year begins September 3rd. Board members sounded confident that they could review and evaluate the contract, then arrange a special meeting to vote on the 5-year, $81 million deal before the deadline. They should do exactly that. That the proposed contract comes in $1.26 million under budget and qualifies for 87% New York State reimbursement are important considerations, but neither relieves the board of determining whether $81 million represents fair value. Board members should get some answers, such as why the monthly cost of a student pass would exceed that of a traditional rider, even though the student's access to Metro bus and rail is restricted to specific times in the morning and afternoon. The NFTA may have an entirely legitimate explanation. The roughly 100 dedicated special routes for Buffalo High School students may account for some of the difference, but the board shouldn't have to speculate about that while voting on an $81 million agreement. The NFTA and the district administration should provide a clear cost breakdown. NFTA officials expressed disappointment that the board did not approve the contract, insisting that the high schoolers are not just clients and customers. Transit officials also pointed to the 5-year, $460 million contract the district signed with the yellow bus provider, First Student, in 2024. The enormous difference between the NFTA agreement and the First Student contract underscores the significant role public transit plays in the district's transportation system. But the comparison doesn't eliminate the board's obligation to scrutinize the NFTA contract's price and terms. Buffalo Schools cycled through several chief operating officers last year and went roughly 3 months with the district's chief financial officer, Jim Barnes, and former superintendent, Pasquale Mumbenga, handling those responsibilities. That instability may help explain how the district reached this point. It does not excuse it. An organization responsible for the transporting tens of thousands of children must maintain continuity despite personnel changes. Barnes acknowledged, "To be fair to everyone, we could have started this process a little earlier as well. yes, much earlier. The board has a right to refuse a rushed vote. Now, it must conduct that review quickly enough that students don't pay for the district's poor planning. Adults created this deadline crisis. Students shouldn't bear its consequences. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons, first one is by Michael Ramirez of Creator Syndicate. And if you're familiar with the picture of the evolution of man, shall we say, like the different stages of evolution are marching across from left to right. It's like there's a chimp, the chimp evolves into a stand-up ape, and then there's a caveman or Neanderthal. And then we have a modern man, and he's carrying a sign that has a picture of a syringe with the no sign, no syringe, and the sign says anti-vax. And in front of the man carrying the sign, which would be today's result, is a little boy, and he's in a wheelchair labeled polio, and it is titled The Anti-Vaccine Evolution. The second cartoon is by Steve Kelly, also of Creator Syndicate. And there's a bunch of people demonstrating on one side, and a woman, like a housewife, standing there talking to them as well. And the people on the left, they're condemning ice out, no more ice, and they're shouting. And the person in the crowd says, "Once America goes socialist, we will abolish ice." And the woman turns to them and says, "That won't be necessary. If America goes socialist, no one will want to get in." Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Everybody's column. Tax fossil fuels as an incentive. In the August 19th Another Voice, writers Howard Fadden and Christina Paget provided an excellent overview of climate change. I agree with their recommendation to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. However, they do not recommend how to reduce this dependency. One way to reduce dependency is to impose a special fee that would discourage the use of fossil fuels. This would need to be added to the pump price of gasoline and diesel, the monthly natural gas bill for heating, water, and buildings, and the monthly electric bill. 58% of our electricity is generated by burning coal and natural gas. I believe that voters will oppose this fee, which may be the reason our political parties are doing nothing to reduce this dependency. This from Michael F. Patterson of Clarence.
Thank you, Larry. Trump cannot be supported. A recent letter, August 20th, suggested President Trump doesn't get enough support for all he's done for the nation, and that criticism is not based on facts. Here are some facts to consider. Trump sidestepped Congress, starting a war with Iran after ignoring his own advisors and those in the military. He was informed that Iran was nowhere near developing a nuclear weapon, and that an unlawful attack on them would likely elicit the very response we've witnessed: attacks on our Middle East-based military and closure of the Strait of Hormuz. In the first term, Trump tore up the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, enacted by President Obama with several other countries. Iran then reenacted nuclear development. No one wants to see Iran threatening the world with a nuke, but a president who willfully disregards professional advice, pledging the country into a war of hubris, cannot be supported, especially given the cost in human lives. It has also put an unnecessary strain on our economy, not to mention the depletion of our arms stockpile. This affects everyone. How can anyone support a president who has caused health care, fuel, and food costs to skyrocket after shuttering federal departments and agencies devoted to assisting the American public? Not only has Trump short-circuited renewable energy development, he's financed and promoted a resurgence in the dying coal industry. Who can support a leader authorizing the thuggish actions of ICE, which targets immigrants and citizens alike? Trump is systematically bankrupting our nation as he and his family enrich themselves at taxpayer expense. Those are the facts. And this is written by Mark Hardy of Tonawanda. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Housing shortage must be addressed. I'm very concerned about the housing shortage that is hitting the country and how it will affect the Buffalo area. I was glad to find that candidate Aaron Guys has taken a position. He has articulated these intentions. Expand housing supply to drive down costs. Support redevelopment and rebuilding in existing communities. Create construction jobs and expand local property taxes. I have no idea what the incumbent's position is because he has not held any town hall meetings. I hope I will be able to follow news of Guy's positions in the Buffalo News. This from Marjorie Coons Torn of Orchard Park. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:25. Some opinion columns. This one is Another Voice, and it's about energy, and it's written by Jack Dueck, co-founded Energy Marketing Conferences and Grid Power Direct, a licensed retail energy supplier, and it's titled Office Building Owners Can Get Income from Power. As national grid delivery charges climb across western New York, the smartest owners are turning a cost into an income stream. Class A office landlords in Buffalo spend enormous effort managing operating expenses, and electricity is consistently one of the largest line items on the books. If your building is sub-metered, where tenants reimburse you for most or all of the electricity they consume, that may be the wrong place to start. In August 2025, New York state regulators approved a 3-year rate plan that raises electric delivery charges by more than 19% over its term. The causes are structural: an aging transmission grid, the cost of New York's climate mandates, canceled transmission projects that tighten supply, and growing demand from data centers and electrification. For a Class A office building in Buffalo that consumes millions of kilowatt hours a year, that rising delivery charge is a cost the owner absorbs in full. For buildings where the landlord absorbs energy costs, rising rates compound directly into net operating income. The conventional response is still worth doing. Shop harder, compare suppliers, lock in a fixed contract before rates move higher. But procurement alone is no longer the whole answer. More sophisticated landlords are starting to ask a different question. How can our building generate income from the electricity it already consumes? That shift turns electricity from a cost center into an income-producing asset. In sub-metered buildings, owners can partner with energy suppliers and take part in programs where the structure of power supply itself generates revenue. The infrastructure to do this already exists in most Class A properties in Buffalo. Smart owners are growing net operating income without raising rents, without marking up electricity to tenants, and without deploying new capital. In a market where national grid costs are climbing and further increases are already on the calendar, the best positioned owners are the ones who stopped treating electricity as only an expense and started treating it as an asset. The rate will keep rising. The question now is whether your building simply pays it or also earns from it. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Let's see, where are we here? We're looking at an article from Jeff Daniels. Reagan showed the world the way back from the nuclear brink. For the first 3 decades of my life, I lived, like everyone else on Earth at the time, under the nuclear sword of Damocles. Then something unimaginable happened in a small white house on the edge of the North Atlantic that would change the course of history. In October 1986, President Reagan met Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev in Reykjavik, Iceland, to resolve the question of whether we were destined for nuclear war or if we could step back from the brink. At a moment when 70,000 nuclear weapons existed throughout the world, these two fierce adversaries sat down across from each other and looked past decades of fear and suspicion to find a middle ground. I play Ronald Reagan in a new film set during the extraordinary weekend. The story of their meeting is a testament to the power of diplomacy and to what is possible when two sides come together in the name of mutual interest and peace. Thanks to their courage to engage in conversation, the United States and Russia reduced nuclear weapons by 80% over the following decade. That weekend marked the beginning of the end of the Cold War. A film like ours can play a significant role in helping the public understand the stakes of the nuclear arms race and what would happen if, God forbid, nuclear weapons suddenly filled our skies. I hope Reagan would admire our new film in part because not only did he understand the power of cinema as an actor, but he shifted his own views on whether nuclear war was winnable after watching the ABC film The Day After, a few weeks before its 1983 premiere while he was at Camp David. I deeply respect Reagan for having the strength to engage directly in good faith with our greatest adversary. He bucked domestic business pressure and policy hawks, and in doing so, he showed the world that strong leaders pursue dialogue. 40 years later, that lesson is more important than ever. The last arms control treaty between the U.S. and Russia, a legacy of Reykjavik, expired this year. Today, we are facing a new three-way arms race with Russia and China. In addition, other countries have developed or are seeking nuclear technology with a de-emphasis on inspections. Nuclear weapons in today's arsenals are up to 80 times more powerful than the bomb the U.S. dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. Many are still poised to launch at a moment's notice. New technologies from artificial intelligence to hypersonic missiles make the situation even more complicated than it was during the Cold War. There have been many close calls and misinterpretations that nearly ended in nuclear catastrophe because of a lack of communication and dialogue. In 1983, just 2 weeks before 100 million Americans watched The Day After, NATO conducted a military drill that took place over several days called Able Archer, which simulated the start of a nuclear war. The exercise took place during heightened U.S.-Soviet tensions, just after the deployment of missiles capable of reaching Moscow in 8 minutes. The Soviets readied for nuclear war, fearing it was cover for an attack. We are not immune from this happening again. Just last year, the U.S. and Russia traded escalatory comments about repositioning nuclear-armed submarines. To avert disaster, we must start talking to one another. Dialogue is not weakness. It does not mean agreement, endorsement, or surrender. Rather, it is a safeguard for our future, the first step in finding a path forward that will make this planet we share safer for all of us. As the former president said, a nuclear war can never be won and must never be fought. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. Nothing is off the table as trade war escalates. On September 8th, Canada is set to enact tariffs ranging from 15% to 50% on over 700 American goods in an effort to match U.S. tariffs dollar for dollar, Canadian announced on Tuesday. Notably, Canada is doubling its duties on U.S. steel and aluminum to 50%, in line with the 50% tariffs the U.S. had already imposed on Canadian steel and aluminum before the latest round of U.S. tariffs. The Canadian officials framed the move as a means of protecting Canadian manufacturing. The duties the U.S. recently imposed on Canadian goods will have real consequences for Canadian workers, businesses, and communities across our nation, Canadian Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne said Tuesday. Canada must respond, and today we are in a proportionate, targeted, and strategic way. These types of retaliatory tariffs are just some of the arrows Canada has in its quiver in a growing trade war with the United States. Beyond tariffs, Canada also has other tools at its disposal, including restrictions on key exports to the United States. Besides steel and aluminum, the retaliatory tariffs are concentrated on sectors such as paper products, construction materials, home appliances, and agricultural products, including dairy and seafood. In total, the latest American tariffs cover about 5% of the goods the U.S. imported from Canada last year, while Canada's tariffs cover about 6% of the goods the U.S. exported to Canada, according to U.S. trade data. Overall, Canada is the second largest export market for American goods and is among top destinations for many of the goods targeted by the new import duties. For example, Canada was the largest export market for U.S. household appliances last year, purchasing more than $1 billion worth of the goods, most of which now face a 25% tariff. In announcing the retaliatory actions, Canadian officials also unveiled a $5.4 billion package to support domestic businesses harmed by the new duties. The risk for Canadians here is that steep Canadian tariffs could weaken demand for these goods, which could force employers to cut workers' hours or in some cases resort to layoffs. Trump already signaled he may go beyond the latest tariffs in his trade fight with Canada, threatening on Monday to double tariffs on Canadian cars and auto parts to 50% starting January 1st. If Trump follows through on the auto taxes or escalates in other ways, Ottawa could use the other ammunition. Canada could restrict key exports to the U.S., such as energy and key fertilizer ingredient known as potash, said Diamond Insinger, a policy strategist and former special advisor on Canada-U.S. relations to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Another vulnerable area is electricity. Ontario Premier Doug Ford said in an interview published Monday that Canada should be prepared to cut off electricity exports to the United States if the trade war worsens, putting a potentially powerful weapon on the table. Ontario supplies energy to several U.S. states, including New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. Carney echoed Ford, telling reporters that nothing is off the table. Tariffs could make it harder for U.S. companies to sell their goods in Canada. Restrictions on energy, electricity, or critical minerals, something Ford also floated, could instead raise costs for American companies and consumers by making key inputs more expensive or harder to obtain. Restrictions on these key Canadian goods could quickly be felt by U.S. businesses and consumers, making it harder to stay afloat, Eisinger said. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Jobless rate inches higher across region, but is still low. The Buffalo-Niagara unemployment rate inched up to nearly 4.4% during July as the region largely absorbed an influx of students seeking summer jobs. The State Labor Department reported Tuesday. The region's unemployment rate typically increases from June to July, and that happened this year with the jobless rate rising from 4.1% during June. But the size of the increase was the smallest since the pandemic in 2020, which indicates that most of the workers that started looking for jobs last month were able to find one. The jobless rate across the region remains relatively low by historical standards, hovering at or near the level that economists typically associate with full employment. But that also has been accompanied by a slump in hiring and overall job growth across the region, which in July essentially had the same number of jobs it had 14 months ago. In May 2025, according to a separate Labor Department report issued last week, the local labor force expanded by nearly 4,000 people last month, a seasonal uptick that accompanies the end of the school year and the beginning of the job hunt by students seeking summer jobs. The July labor force was bigger than it has been since July 2023. Tuesday's report indicates that most of the new workers were successful in landing positions, with the number of employed people rising by 2,200 and the number of unemployed people, defined as someone without a job who is actively looking one, rising by 1,700. Much of the hiring that took place during July came in the leisure and hospitality sectors, which includes restaurants, hotels, and other businesses that typically look to add employees during the summer. That sector had a sluggish start to the seasonal hiring season, but activity picked up in July. It might be weather-related, said Timothy Glass, the Labor Department's regional economist in Buffalo. That also could be employers having a hard time finding workers. They finally did, or maybe they were reluctant to hire workers early on. They were waiting to see how business went. While hiring has been sluggish, businesses are also cutting back at an accelerated pace. The number of workers filing for unemployment benefits during the week of August 15th fell to its lowest level since last September, and the 4-week moving average, which smooths out weekly volatility, also dropped to more than a 10-month low. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Young Americans' credit scores rise. Kelly Klein graduated from college with $100,000 in student loans that she feared would haunt her forever. I expected I'd never pay off my student debt, says Klein, who is 31 years old. But flash forward 10 years and Klein is now debt-free, her retirement account is flush, and her credit score is pristine. Every commission check I earned for the first 6 years went to paying off my debt, every single penny, said Klein, who is based in Nashville, Tennessee, and works as a loan officer at a community development financial institution. While millions of Americans are hurting from high prices and low hiring, new research suggests the finances of younger generations are displaying surprising resilience. Americans between the ages of 18 and 29 have higher credit scores today than they did just before COVID-19, according to FICO research first shared with CNN. Not only that, but that youngest generation's 17-point increase in average credit scores since 2019 is the biggest among any age group FICO measured. The second biggest increase in credit scores over that time frame was for the 30 to 44 cohort, otherwise known as millennials. Most of the gains occurred during the initial stages of the health emergency when student loan payments were paused. Experts say younger Americans have benefited from access to better education about the importance of protecting credit scores to hold down payments later in life. Gen Z is pretty savvy about credit, and they are more aware of credit scores in part because there have been so many economic headwinds during their lives, said Matt Scholes, chief credit analyst at LendingTree. Overall FICO scores fell slightly between April 2025 and April 2026. However, credit scores for Gen Z are up by 1 point over that time frame, and roughly half have a very strong FICO score of 700 or above. Another factor, younger borrowers are at or near the beginning of their credit journeys, giving them the most room to grow their credit scores. FICO said it doesn't take into consideration age when scoring borrowers, but it does evaluate how long someone has been able to successfully make payments on time. As consumers take on different kinds of debt, moving from just credit cards and student debt to car loans and mortgages, they open themselves up to being better borrowers. That's a key factor in determining credit scores. More emphasis on being responsible borrowers may help explain why, at a high level, average credit scores for younger Americans have held up better than might be expected in today's economic environment, where high-income earners have seen their wealth grow faster than low-income earners. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From Business Briefly, consumer confidence dips to 7-month low in August. U.S. consumer confidence fell in August to its lowest level in 7 months as households' outlooks for the labor market and inflation worsened. Where are we here? Somehow lost my place. The Conference Board said its consumer confidence dropped 89 to 89.4 this month, the lowest since January, from a downwardly revised 90.2 in July. Economists polled by Reuters had forecast the index at 90.2 versus an originally reported 90.8 in July. The decline was led by a 7.8% slide in the expectations index, offsetting the first improvement in households' views of the current situation in 4 months. Consumers were more pessimistic about business conditions and the labor market over the next 6 months, said Dana Pearson, chief economist at the Conference Board. New home sales tumbled. Sales of new single-family homes tumbled in July as high mortgage rates weighed on the market and continued to sideline potential homebuyers, while consumer confidence slid to a 7-month low on darkening outlooks from the job market and inflation. New home sales dropped 10.5% to a seasonally adjusted annualized rate of 607,000 units last month, the lowest since January. From June's upwardly revised pace, the Commerce Department's Census Bureau said Tuesday. New home sales account for a small share of the U.S. home sales and tend to be volatile on a month-to-month basis. They fell 6.3% over the past year. And Kennedy Center, President Donald Trump's administration argued in a court filing Monday that the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts could eventually face demolition if major repairs are not undertaken, as it defended a renewed effort to restore Trump's name on the landmark's facade. And Barron Trump, the U.S. Secret Service, is aware of a video broadcast by Iranian state television discussing a potential plot to assassinate President Donald Trump's youngest son, 20-year-old Barron Trump, a spokesperson said Tuesday.
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Alissi, John. Almendinger, Thomas J. Bauer, William R. Bill. Blodgett, Mark. Chamberlain, Marie J. Nate Parker. Chaszowski, John. DeAurelio, Lawrence Robert. Davidson, Mark. Emmanuel, Arenthia. King, Barbara. Koch, Gerald. McNeil, Pamela. Moran, Kevin S. Moran, Sally P. Naismith. Parsi, Judy M. Pietico. Rodriguez, Felix. Sampson, David C. Stevens, Colleen L. Strader, Paul. Young, Richard. Nancy Castlebaum, the former U.S. Senator Nancy Castlebaum, the wife of former Tennessee Senator Howard Baker, died Friday. She was 94. Castlebaum Baker was the 14th woman to serve in the Senate. She represented Kansas from 1978 to 1997, following in the footsteps of her father, former Kansas Governor Alfred Landon. And Dolly Parton, the queen of country music, a philanthropist supporting a diverse array of projects and causes, and Dollywood's dreamer-in-chief, has died, according to her social media accounts. The East Tennessee native was 80 years old. If you need further information on any of these names, give us a call at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars, happy birthday for Wednesday, August 26, 2026. You are independent, imaginative, and innovative. You are also ambitious and filled with intellectual curiosity. This year you reap the benefits of all your hard work. The stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. Aries, this is an excellent day for a practical discussion with 4 stars with someone older or more experienced. This might happen by talking to a partner, close friend, or a member of the general public. Tonight, friendships. Taurus, 3 stars. You're high vis today. This will probably benefit those of you at work because relations with coworkers are mutually supportive. Today, you also might benefit from behind-the-scenes research. Tonight, be modest. Gemini, 4 stars. This is the perfect day to explore avenues in publishing, the media, medicine, and the law. Romance with someone different might begin. Tonight, explore. Cancer, 3 stars. You have some strong energy now. Meanwhile, discussions about shared property and banking could benefit home and family for you today. Tonight, check your finances. Leo, 4 stars. Even though you will be charming and diplomatic with everyone, it's in your best interest to go more than halfway when dealing with others. Be accommodating and cooperative, and tonight, listen. Virgo, 3 stars. You might be interested in buying beautiful things, clothing, dishware, jewelry, artwork, whatever strikes your fancy. Keep your pockets open. Tonight, work. Libra, 4 stars. You'll enjoy socializing with others today. Romantic connections will be particularly appealing. You have a soft spot in your heart for someone today. Tonight, be playful. Scorpio, 4 stars. A practical discussion with someone older, perhaps a family member, might introduce improvement at home or within the family. Continue to enjoy the company of others, especially younger people. Tonight, Cocoon. Sagittarius, 4 stars. Conversations with neighbors, siblings, and relatives will please you today. In fact, someone older might have advice for you, especially related to a vacation, your kids, sports, or the arts. Tonight's discussions. Capricorn, 4 stars. Bosses and authority figures will favor you. As a result, you might be able to benefit home and family in a practical way. Tonight, check your belongings. Aquarius. It is a great day to make travel plans. An attraction to someone different might occur. Tonight, you're strong. Pisces. Work going on behind the scenes will benefit you today. In fact, it could trigger money coming your way. Tonight, enjoy solitude and pleasant surroundings. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Hints from Heloise. Try asking for an employee's name. Dear Heloise, just read an avid reader's suggestion about employees/staff wearing name tags so that people can know their names. Why not just ask them? It is more personal and shows that you really care. From Al. Oh, and there's no reply. Fountain pen ink removal. Dear Heloise, I have a suggestion for Alice in New York for removing fountain pen ink. I used expensive, specialized products with limited success until my sister told me about Pears soap, Pears. She uses it to remove red stain lines from cloth napkins, so I thought it'd be good to get fountain pen ink off my hands. It works great. I buy the gold transparent soap from the dollar store, so it's a bargain. From Sue. Stove safety. Dear Heloise, when I turn on a burner on my stove, I also turn on a task light above my stove. This signals to me that a burner is on, so I don't leave it on after I finish cooking. Also in the grocery store, I rub the plastic bag together between my hands, and it automatically separates the sleeve so that then I can open it up without a problem. And that's from Joyce. Grammar sound off. As a former senior technical writer/editor for a research institute, a published author, a freelance editor, an instructor of professional business and technical writing at universities and colleges, and a substitute high school English teacher, I am appalled at the number of Americans who cannot write or speak proper English. Students today aren't taught the parts of speech or the rules of grammar, nor the importance of proper communication in the work world. When I hear people say, me and her are going to the show, or this room needs vacuumed, it's all I can do to hold my tongue. Although I confess that I did correct my younger grandchildren. It's better to teach them now than to let them continue to speak poor English. As I told my university students, when I see a glaring grammatical error in a promotional flyer for a bank, for example, my faith in the bank vanishes. How can I trust a bank to manage my funds if the bank can't even catch mistakes in its correspondence? Poor grammar equates to unprofessionalism, and that's by Stevie. Stevie, do you have any suggestions on how to fix this problem? I believe it starts in the home with parents speaking to their child, but not everyone agrees. Readers, what are your thoughts on this subject? Should we correct children who use improper English? And that's from Heloise. And the word of the day. Dear Heloise, my husband and I made up a word game to help our children learn better English and a wider vocabulary. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at dinner time, my husband will ask, "What's the word of the day?" Each child selects a word from the dictionary the day before. They pronounce the word, spell it, and tell him what it means. Last night, all three had their words ready: oblique, mandate, and permeable. My oldest child is 11 and the twins are 10. For their ages, they have a wide and varied vocabulary, and that's from Julie A. Larry?
Ain't got nothing to say about that. Next article, Green Giant, How Taylor Farms Became a Top U.S. Produce Supplier. Taylor Farms, the produce supplier, at the center of the massive U.S. cyclosporus outbreak, changed the way America eats after launching branded, prepackaged, and washed chopped salads more than a decade ago. With flavors ranging from Asiago kale to broccoli crunch, The products are ubiquitous in Walmart, Kroger, Costco, and other grocery stores, establishing Taylor Farms as North America's leading salad producer. Its size and extensive network of growers also made it an indispensable supplier to some of the largest restaurant chains, including McDonald's and Taco Bell. Now, the company changed the way America eats again, this time driving consumers away from fresh produce after iceberg lettuce at Taylor Farms processed in central Mexico was tied to the U.S. outbreak of illness caused by the Cyclospora parasite. Outbreak cuts demand. Cyclosporiasis, an intestinal infection that can cause explosive diarrhea for weeks, can be contracted by consuming food, typically raw fruits and vegetables, or water contaminated with feces that transmit the parasite. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed more than 15,000 cases and 2 deaths across 47 states. The outbreak slashed demand for fresh produce, and wholesale lettuce prices plunged a record 73% in July. Though the outbreak was linked to lettuce from Mexico, not the U.S., the decline hit some farmers in California's Salinas Valley, which is home to Taylor Farms and known as the World Salad Bowl. Small producers in the valley said Taylor Farms' size helps it weather the downturn, reflecting founder Bruce Taylor's dominance in a food industry comprising few large players. The company, built on businesses from major restaurant and food service customers, is a $7 billion enterprise with more than 25,000 employees, according to the University of California, Berkeley, where Taylor studied business. He's a super smart guy, said Tim McAfee, owner of the Visionary Vegetables, which produces cilantro and lettuce in Salinas, California. He had a strategy to take over the produce industry, and it worked. Leave thin profit margins. Farmers, shippers, and agricultural workers in the Salinas Valley suffered financially because of the outbreak, with a major handler of leafy greens cutting employees' hours in a processing plant because of lower demand. Sabre Farms, which produces herbs, spinach, kale, and other crops, plowed under some cilantro fields because demand sank by about 30%, said Jess Quinlan, founder and president. Operating on margins of about 2%, the losses ruined the potential for profits this year, he said. There was nothing more devastating than to put all the work in and then not even be able to cut it, Quinlan said. In recent days, farm workers swiftly harvested bunches of fragrant cilantro with sharp knives from Sabre Farms in Cholula, California, southeast of Salinas. Starting at 5 a.m., they placed the cilantro on a slowly moving machine where the crop was sprayed with chlorinated water to clean it. The herb was then packed into boxes. To prevent possible contamination, workers do not harvest cilantro on the ground. 2 farms that Reuters visited in the valley had portable toilets with outdoor hand-washing stations on site while workers were harvesting crops.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, August 26th on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beanon
and Linda Ranella.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beenan.
Some local and regional news. The first, I've got like 2 short articles, folks. Hilbert will build $4 million artificial turf field on the campus. Hilbert College is preparing to give more of its teams a true home field advantage. The college this fall will start building a multi-purpose artificial turf athletic field on its Hamburg campus. The project's estimated cost of between $3.5 million and $4 million. The new field will host games for Hilbert's Division III college football, soccer, and lacrosse programs, eliminating a need for teams in those sports to play all or some of their home games at off-campus venues. Construction will start this fall with completion expected in spring 2027. Hilbert's teams are expected to start using the field for games during the 27-28 academic year. Hilbert said the new field will expand opportunities for intramural sports, on-campus events, student programming, wellness initiatives, and community engagement. The school also says it is exploring partnerships with local soccer and lacrosse organizations to use the new field. Hilbert added a football program in 2022 and has played games at venues including St. Francis High School. Hilbert's soccer and lacrosse teams sometimes play on grass field on campus, but the region's weather can make for difficult playing conditions at times. Many schools in western New York have installed artificial turf fields to cope with those conditions. The project is being designed and built in partnership with Montante Construction, and the cost will be covered by a combination of donations and financing. And cyclist is critically injured after being struck by SUV. A 70-year-old bicyclist was critically injured Sunday as he was riding across Sheridan Drive in the town of Tonawanda and struck by an SUV, town police reported late Monday afternoon. The crash happened at the site where the town's Rails to Trails bike and pedestrian path crosses the busy thoroughfare between Logan and Gettysburg Avenues. This section of the path across Sheridan is controlled by a Hawk HEWK signal. Cyclists and pedestrians press a button when they want to cross Sheridan that activates the signal and brings eastbound and westbound traffic on the road to a halt. Police Captain Joseph Milosic on Tuesday afternoon told the Buffalo News the signal was not activated and all its lights were turned off when the crash happened. The crash occurred at about 1 p.m. Sunday. Local news outlets reported Sheridan Drive was closed in both directions for a couple of hours in its aftermath. The cyclist, Frank J. Salier, of the town of Tonawanda, was treated at the scene by a town EMS crew before he was taken to Erie County Medical Center. He remained in critical condition Tuesday afternoon at ECMC. The driver of the Mazda SUV involved in the crash was not identified. This motorist stayed at the scene and is cooperating with police as their investigation continues. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Rodriguez's first resolution honors grads who enlist. In a nod to military, JROTC unit will lead Pledge of Allegiance. Talia Rodriguez was beaming at the end of Wednesday's Buffalo School Board meeting. The first-year West District representative had just passed her first resolution, a venture that is both a nod to her family's military history as well as a call for recognition of Buffalo Schools graduates who enter the military. The impetus for the resolution was the service of Rodriguez's maternal grandfather, Joseph L. Carey, a Buffalo Schools graduate who was in the U.S. Navy during World War II, and her maternal cousin, Joseph Z. Carey, also a Buffalo Schools graduate who served in the Navy during the war in Afghanistan. It is my hope that the Carey resolution honors not only those who are serving today, Rodriguez said, but also the generations of families who have answered the call before them and their connection to the Buffalo Public Schools. The resolution, which passed unanimously, calls for the Buffalo School Board to schedule a meeting each year in which Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, JROTC unit, leads the Pledge of Allegiance, and officials read the names of Buffalo Schools graduating seniors who enroll in the military. Our students are making a tremendous commitment to our country, one that requires courage, discipline, sacrifice, and service, Rodriguez said. Rodriguez read the resolution with Hutchinson Central Technical High School student Asel Radi El Karamashi, a JROTC cadet at the Buffalo School. El Karamashi spoke briefly after the resolution to share that her aunt, a Marine Corps veteran, was a role model and one of her biggest inspirations. Before joining JROTC, El Karamashi said she was noticing a difference in herself. It brought my communication to be better. It brought leadership into my life, and it taught me to be more disciplined around other people, she told the audience at Performing Arts. Hutch Tech's JROTC website says the program's mission is to motivate young people to be better citizens. Rodriguez is one of 4 members, including Stephen Wright, Louis Wookie Hawkins, and Eric Bohen, who joined the 9-member Buffalo School Board in January. Rodriguez won the board's only contested race in November, ousting incumbent Jennifer McCosey and fellow challenger Mustafa Abdo. Much of the board's public activity the past few months has been dominated by allegations against board member Hawkins and former superintendent Pascal Mumunga. The transition of the North District seat from Cindy McEachin to Roscoe Henderson III and preparations for a new school year that include the appointment of a state monitor. Allegations made against Hawkins that were investigated by Hodgson Rush LLP could not be substantiated. Some of the clamor has overshadowed early contributions of the board's newcomers. Wright led the renaming of the community School 53 to the Nan M. Wood Community School of Excellence, while Bohan joined forces with Assemblymember Pat Burke to begin redevelopment of a track behind Southside Elementary. Hawkins has yet to file a solo resolution, but he and Wright combined on May 14th in a memorial resolution this spring. Oh, Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Trooper resigns after leaking information in narcotics probe. A New York State trooper resigned after being charged with leaking information that ended up in the hands of the targets of a major narcotics trafficking investigation. Rosalia Flower, 35, of Lancaster, was charged with and pleaded guilty to attempt to tamper with physical evidence, a misdemeanor, after taking photographs of confidential information related to the investigation with her personal cell phone and sharing that information in a text message with a friend. The photograph was later shared with targets of the investigation, causing parts of the probe to be shut down, according to a news release for State Attorney General Letitia James' office. Flower was monitoring wiretaps as part of the investigation led by the Attorney General's Organized Crime Task Force, which led to the indictment of 17 members of the drug trafficking ring. Organization members are accused of running a wide-ranging narcotics trafficking ring that distributed drugs throughout western New York and in Puerto Rico. The Attorney General's indictment included charges for 117 crimes, and the investigation led to the seizure of more than 10 kilograms of cocaine and more than 250 grams of fentanyl and heroin. In a written statement, James said her office holds law enforcement officials to the highest standards and trusts them to keep New Yorkers safe. This investigation was compromised because a trooper flagrantly disregarded her duty and put law enforcement officers and New York families in danger, James said. During this leak, our investigators continued their hard work and were able to successfully arrest 17 individuals for their role in narcotics trafficking. My office and our law enforcement partners will continue working to keep dangerous narcotics out of our community. 2 Buffalo men faced the most serious charge, operating as a major trafficker, Luis Galarza Jr., 40, and Victor Quinones, 50. The drug trafficking ring was active in Erie, Niagara, Monroe, and Onondaga counties, according to the indictment. Flowers first denied taking a photograph when questioned in July 2025, blaming other members of the investigation. In September of last year, she admitted to taking and sharing the photograph and was arrested on July 20th of this year and charged with felony tampering with evidence before pleading guilty to the lesser charge. New York State Police Superintendent Stephen James said this misconduct is not tolerated in his organization. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Working to destigmatize addiction, mental illness. After heartbreaking losses, families strive to help others. 2 young men died from their struggles with addiction and mental illness, but their families are keeping their memories alive. The Zach Liberatory Foundation and the Colton's Journey to Liberation organization provide resources for those struggling and work to eradicate the stigma surrounding the topics. The Liberatory family created the Zach Liberatory Foundation months after their oldest son, Zachary Liberatory, died in October 2020 from an overdose of Opana, a painkiller he used to self-medicate his debilitating symptoms from obsessive-compulsive disorder. Since 2021, every October has seen as Oktoberfest, an annual fundraiser that raises money toward the expansion of OCD resources, offsetting of treatment costs and education on the disorder. Treatment of the effective management for pediatric OCD clinic based in the Children's Psychiatric Clinic at the Golisano Children's Hospital of Buffalo has received more than $500,000 from the Zach Liberatory Foundation so far, and a commitment for another $500,000 over the next 5 years. It's powerful, said Chelsea McCabe, GCH Buffalo's Director of Behavioral Health. This isn't like some big donor came in and gave the $100,000. This is their boots on the ground fundraising, using their son's memory and honor. Colin Lasker cycled between recovery and relapse during his 10-year battle with addiction, dying from complications during detox in June 2016. When beds at a recovery center were full, few options were available, leaving him and his family scrambling for answers and alternatives. His mother, Rebecca Barnell, along with sisters Stephanie and Shania Fitzpatrick, launched the Colton's Journey to Liberation organization a year later. Proceeds are donated to local nonprofits such as Kids Escaping Drugs, which helped Lasker navigate recovery at its Renaissance campus, and Connect Life, where he saved 4 lives through organ donations after death. The organization's website is home to a directory of resources for community nonprofits to detox centers. Barnell's house is within walking distance of Hamburg's Sparks of Hope, a recovery center started by community members at Hamburg United Methodist Church who wanted to further the organization's mission. It gives me so much peace, Barnell said. The accomplishment for me and my life is my children and the results of my children. The result of Colton and my daughters is that they are all affecting other people every single day, and I couldn't be more grateful. Secrets kill. When Zachary Liberatory spoke about his struggle with OCD on social media, his mother Jennifer worried that he would be bullied. But she got on board and promised him right before he died that she would keep his memory alive. 4 years later, Jennifer Liberatory published her memoir, You Wonderful Boy. The memoir chronicled Zachary's life with honesty, his childhood bonding with his 3 brothers over sports and Harry Potter movies, hence the book's title pulled from the words of Albus Dumbledore. His stays in 6 short-term and 6 long-term inpatient facilities as he grappled with OCD, bulimia, and addiction. His text messages to and from his mother, Jennifer, and her last text message to him saying, "Night, Zach, love you." There were days Jennifer Liberatory almost could not face that story. I just wanted him to be a happy person, and so reliving all of that was heartbreaking, she said. But the writing was cathartic. I think when you go through especially the end and the death, you shut your mind down in order to process, to survive, she said. You have to deal with it at a point where it festers and you can't move forward or heal. Eric Liberatory, Zachary's second younger brother, says it was really awesome to have the book get to the story out there. My mother was so strong for writing that, Eric said. Just the fact that it's reaching more people. Her story, our family story, Zach's story, I think it's awesome. Secrets kill, Barnell said. My kids were raised knowing that all those dangerous secrets are what cripples you. It will take your life from you, your family's life from you, Barnell said. The secret is what puts the family in a terror. It rips them apart. Lasker said the outgoing, charismatic, and passionate about literature, but he was scared to death all the time, Barnell said. When nobody knew he was how insecure he was and how he had anxiety that he hid. Barnell said the first time he drank, it released him from that. Conversations around mental health and substance abuse are growing more common, but stigma persists. A 2044 national survey conducted by Shatterproof, a nonprofit, dedicated to combating the addiction crisis, stated that approximately 57% of Americans believe someone with a substance use disorder was untrustworthy, and about 69% believed they were unpredictable. A patron at a salon where Barnell was doing her nails for Lasker's wake had talked about someone else that they knew who died, saying, well, he was an addict anyway, so he was just asking for it. Barnell made sure to let them know just what she thought before she left. Colton's journey to liberation is about taking the shame away. We didn't go through all of that so we could sit on the information that we got and watch other people suffer. Barnell said, none of these people are worthless people. They are incredible people who have incredible minds, and they're so capable of so many things. They're lost, they're hurting, they don't understand it, and it scares the crap out of them every day. The family are talkers, says Shana Fitzpatrick. Ever since my brother passed away 10 years ago, we were saying this sucks and this is terrible, and we never wanted this to happen, but we knew that so much good was going to come from it because that's just the type of family we are, Fitzpatrick said. We can't keep quiet about the things that didn't go so right. Going and going. A chicken barbecue brought Linda Shentz to Colton's journey to liberation. The smells from the organization's barbecue pulled Sense and her husband in, and it was the flyers of Lasker's story that inspired Sense to sell Barnell that they wanted to open a place for people struggling with addiction. The place would be Sparks of Hope. When we read Colton's story, it was heartbreaking, said Sense. We agreed among ourselves that it's unacceptable that there's not places for people to come, feel supported, loved, and reintegrated back into the community. The recovery center can be mistaken for a family's home. Cozy sofas and a well-lit kitchen and a backyard garden. People in addiction recovery and their families can stop in for peer-to-peer support. 12-stop programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous can avoid the folding chairs and instead use the center's place. Barnell's sister, who is about 60 days sober and is in Alcoholics Anonymous, says that the place is a big part of her sobriety. Barnell had brought her a plane ticket from Oregon to Buffalo, where she packed 2 suitcases and left everything else behind. It's so amazing that my nephew was part of my recovery, she said. Jennifer Liberatore says that for the Zach Liberatore Foundation would not have been anything without the people who came and supported it. 14 people, friends, and people who started out as strangers are part of the foundation's committee, and around 100 volunteers help with the event. A young woman had spoken last year's Oktoberfest about her experience at the Tempo Clinic, and her psychologist said was one of the foundation's sponsors and a postdoctoral fellowship for Liberatore said. Would we give this all up to have him back? Of course, she said. But what is being done? That team at the Children's Hospital telling us you're helping so many families and people that's just going to keep us going. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:18. On to sports. Some sports shorts first. Buffalo's Michael Antonius, playing in a U.S. Open men's qualifying tournament, got off to a good start on Tuesday with a 6-1, 6-2 victory over Henry Searle of Great Britain on court 11 at the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center in Flushing. He cruised through the match, winning on 82% of his first serves. He was 4 of 7 on break points, while Searle was 0 for 4. Antonius won the match in a tidy 1 hour, 2 minutes. Antonius, 16, is 6'3", 175 pounds, and he was ranked number 670 in the world entering the tournament. He is now 24-9 as a professional this season. And study says CTE in 25% of players in sample. At least 1 in 4 former NFL players who died between 2016 and 21 was found to have chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, according to a study released on Tuesday. Out of the 878 former players who died during that time, 235 donated their brains, researchers said, with 215 of those donated brains found to have CTE, a degenerative disease that can only definitely be diagnosed after death. An NFL spokesperson said the NFL continuously strives to make the game of football safer, including by implementing strategies to reduce concussions and head impacts. The study's lead author, Daniel Dainshavar, the chair of physical medicine and rehabilitation at Mass General Brigham, and an associate professor at Harvard Medical School, said the repeated traumatic brain injuries is a known factor in elevated rates of neurodegenerative disease. Similarly, we and others have shown that in NFL players specifically, there's about a 4 times higher rate of death from neurodegenerative disease than the general population, he added. The study from Mass General Brigham, Boston University, and the Concussion and CTE Foundation also found dementia was common among brain donors, with researchers urging preventive measures that focus on cutting down on repetitive head impacts across all levels of the sport. The bulk of the head impacts that these former NFL players experienced didn't occur at the NFL level. They occurred at the collegiate level and at the high school level, and in many cases the youth level, and all these cumulative hits to the head add up to a result in an increased risk, said Devonshire. The NFL's 2011 collective bargaining agreement limited the number of contact practices during the season. The Ivy League banned full contact tackling during practices 5 years ago. The Supreme Court cleared the way for the NFL's settlement of concussion-related lawsuits with thousands of retired players in 2016. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Little used Grable could find himself in a swing tackle role. An inevitable lesson got passed on to Taylen Grable without the third-year offensive lineman being on the field for the Buffalo Bills. Last November, 13 weeks into the Bills' season, injuries to Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown forced 2 backup offensive tackles into starting roles against the Pittsburgh Steelers' intimidating pass rush. Ryan Vandemark and Alec Anderson had little notice that Buffalo needed them to start at left and right tackle, respectively. It did not matter. The Bills rushed for 249 yards, and Josh Allen did not get sacked in their 26-7 victory. Vandemark is now a member of the Minnesota Vikings. Anderson was named the Bills' starting left guard. Someone on the roster needs to emerge as the swing tackle, a role that requires versatility and adaptability. Ahead of the preseason finale Thursday against the Steelers at Highmark Stadium, Grable appears to be the favorite. I learned from them how they approached every day, Grable said of Vandemark and Anderson. Last year they were all younger players. They have a bit more experience, but now they approached every day. How they crafted all those techniques. It didn't start during the season. It didn't start that week. For them, it started back in summer, voluntary workouts, and it all came to fruition to them. Grable is following the same path. 2 seasons into his NFL career, Grable has appeared in just 5 games. The Bills had continuity on their offensive line, but he also had some bad luck. There was a torn groin muscle that he suffered as a rookie. Then he started last season an injured reserve with a concussion. Another challenge occurred this month with Grable missing the first preseason game because of a minor injury. But he's proven to be their best option to fill in at left or right tackle. Jude Bowery, a rookie 4th-round draft pick, appeared to be ahead in the competition until he struggled in both preseason games and suffered an injury during Saturday's 31-7 win over the Browns in Cleveland. Though Grable isn't a veteran, he has more experience than others competing for the job. In 151 regular season snaps, Grable has not allowed a quarterback hurry or sack. For a big man, he's athletically gifted. The Georgia native played quarterback in high school and averaged 18 points per game while winning 3 consecutive state basketball championships at Wilkerson County High School. He's shown during practices that he can also play guard. The swing tackle job appears to be his, but he's not changing his approach. I'm taking it day by day, said Grable. Beyond that, honestly, taking it rep by rep. I'm not thinking too far ahead. I'm thinking about what's on my plate in that second and building upon that. It allows me to focus on what's in front of me and where my feet are, so I can be the best version of myself. Standing out. Joshua Palmer's strong training camp continued Tuesday with the veteran wide receiver securing a contested deep pass from Josh Allen over bottom of the roster cornerback Anthony Kendall. Palmer will likely begin the season as the Bills' third wide receiver. He's moving well and seems to make an impressive play during each practice. Also on the field Tuesday, safety Cole Bishop intercepted Allen during an 11-on-11 team period. Attendance. 12 players were absent from Bills practice, with inside linebacker Joe Andreessen and wide receiver McCole Hartman Jr. the only ones who were not on the field on the previous day. The rest of the group, wide receivers Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir, offensive lineman Cedric Van Pan Granger, Connor McGovern and Bruno Fina, running back Ty Johnson, defensive tackle Ed Oliver, outside linebacker Javon Solomon, inside linebacker Terrell Bernard, and safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Johnson has resumed running, Brady said, and there's still a chance for the Bills' third down back to be ready for Week 1. Bernard, meanwhile, missed practice for a second consecutive day and stood on the sideline for team drills of the joint practice last Thursday with the Browns. The injury isn't severe enough for Brady to express concern. There's some guys right now that the focus is making sure that they're ready to go for Week 1, said Brady. Bernard is not a guy necessarily fighting for a roster spot. He's a leader for our defense and a starter. He wants to get out there, and sometimes it's keeping him from himself. But no, TB's gonna be good to go. Battle continues. A roster competition which Thursday against the Steelers rookie punter Tommy Doman Jr. against Mitch Wisnowski. Neither seems to have created separation in the competition. Also, Kyle Allen has an opportunity to secure the backup quarterback job. He has completed 85.7% of his passes through 2 preseason games. Josh Allen will not play in the game, Brady announced, which will allow Kyle Allen and Shane Buechele to handle all those snaps. I love how he's spinning it, how he's playing football right now, and how he's obviously a leader of our football team, said Brady. He'll be right there with me. Hopefully, I'll let him call some plays maybe on Thursdays. He wants it all the time. But yeah, Josh is in a really good place.
Thank you, Larry. Another Bills article. Super Bowl winner acclimates quickly to the Bills' defense. By the time defensive lineman Greg Gaines took the practice field with the Buffalo Bills on Tuesday, he had already spent a few days with the team in a completely different state. Yeah, it was interesting, Gaines said Tuesday. First day was in Cleveland, so that was weird. The Bills signed Gaines on August 18th, right before they headed to Ohio for a joint practice and Saturday's preseason game against the Cleveland Browns. Bills head coach Joe Brady saw Gaines comfortability with Buffalo's defensive scheme help ease the quick transition. Greg had a practice and a game in a Buffalo Bills uniform before he ever had a practice here, Brady said. It's a scheme that he's been a part of, a position that he's played, knowing where his eyes need to be and how to strike, and it's just going through getting back into it. Gaines played 7 defensive snaps against the Browns, logging 1 tackle. He knocked the rust off fast, defensive coordinator Jim Leonard said Monday. Anytime you get a guy who isn't in a training camp, you're going to be safe and figure out where their conditioning is at. You know, at that position, it's not going to be the learning. What he needs to do, and a muscle memory took over fast, and he made some big plays in the game in a joint practice. You have to be smart because he missed a good amount of time in the off season just to make sure that you continue to progress as this goes on. I love where he's at. He's a vet. He's been through a lot of battles. I think he'll be good for the group. Gaines entered the league in 2019 as a 4th-round pick of the Los Angeles Rams. He won a Super Bowl there before then spending his last 3 seasons with Tampa Bay. Now entering his 8th season in the NFL, Gaines plays both nose tackle and 3 tech, but he does feel he has a more natural fit between the two. I definitely thrive in the nose position for sure, he said. The 6'1", 312-pound Gaines credits his pad leverage as helping him out at nose tackle, particularly when it comes to double teams. His expertise at the position could help the Bills, who know that defensive lineman Philodarian Mathis will be suspended for the first 3 games of the season. Mathis and Dwayne Carter have been rotating behind second-year defensive lineman Deion Walker. Gaines feels he's acclimated rapidly in Buffalo, which is important, as Brady said he hopes to let Gaines get more reps in Thursday night's preseason finale against Pittsburgh at Highmark Stadium. Pretty good, Gaines said. I feel like I learned the playbook pretty quick. I'm still getting little things dialed in, but I feel like I adapted pretty quick. It's just really similar to what I've been doing my entire life, so it's easy for me. That's what I do, and it's easy to understand and comprehend all the concepts and stuff. Gaines started talking with the Bills in the off-season, but he was waiting to assess what would be the right opportunity. Then he got tired of waiting. During that time, Bills outside linebacker Michael Hotek, who overlapped with Gaines on the Rams, was in his ear hyping up all things Buffalo. Hotek told Gaines about the team, the organization, the city. Hoke wanted to bring in a former teammate that he felt could make an impact in Buffalo. As you can see, he's quite stout, Hoke said. He's strong, and I mean, he was our starting nose guard in the Super Bowl. Like, he has playoff experience. He's played in a couple of different systems now, so he kind of understands what's going on, and he's just a good guy to have around, too. Even if it took until late August, Gaines feel that it was the right move for his career. I was just waiting for the right spot because I want to get somewhere I wanted to go, somewhere I could get good playing time and be on a team that wins and does well, Gaines said. And so this was a perfect fit, I think. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. UB's Johnson completes the circle. Star running back is coaching players at the position. It's hard to believe Jordan Johnson has nearly been a coach for 10 years. A Buffalo native who started at quarterback for Sweet Home High School before entering the University of Buffalo's top 10 rushing yards list, Johnson is entering his second season as the Bulls' running backs coach. Johnson's itch to coach was born during his Sweet Home career under football coach John Fowler and basketball coach Paul Shinsius. Johnson emerged as an all-state quarterback with the Panthers, winning a New York State title and going undefeated against Western New York opponents. He ended his varsity career with offensive MVP honors and a victory in the 37th annual Kensington Lions Club All-Star Game in 2012 at Depew. I started with the coaches that I was taught by and the coaches who coached me, Coach John Fowler and Coach Cincius. Johnson said, they instilled good values in me and they motivated me to be a good player, and then ultimately just how they impacted my life made me want to be a coach. Johnson's career has come full circle. He admitted his goal was to return to UP as a coach. Johnson graduated from Sweet Home in 2012 and played for the Bulls through 2016, earning All-MAC honors and rushing for 2,212 career yards, which ranks sixth in program history. When you have a guy like that, we have been working really, really hard over the last 2.5 years to reconnect our football alumni with the program, Bulls coach Pete Lumbo said. So having a guy like that on the staff is only a plus in that regard, and I would say that he has been everything we hoped in terms of his ability to build relationships with not just his position group, but other guys on the offense and guys on both sides of the ball. He's also an asset in the offensive staff room. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:33. On to Asking Eric. Adult daughter's needs drive parents deep into debt. Dear Eric, our youngest child has worked only part-time for the past 2 years, despite being a single mother to 2 children. At the same time her job situation deteriorated, my husband and I moved away from the city where we all had lived. Our daughter felt abandoned when we left, especially since my husband and I were babysitters, money givers, homework doers, food suppliers, etc. Our daughter was invited to move with us, but could not because of the father. Courts would not allow it. We've been helping our daughter with many expenses: car insurance for 2 cars, cell phone for her and the kids, internet, Netflix, cable, laundry, incidentals, and food. Plus, we've helped with the rent on and off and helped with summer classes for the kids, legal fees, special education teachers, etc. Her ex contributes what the courts told him to and not a penny more. These expenses have been very hard on my husband and me financially. We dipped into our savings 3 times and once took money out on our house. Now, once again, we are in credit card debt up to our necks, more than $30,000, and none of the expenses are ours. When I tried to explain this problem to our daughter, she flipped out, as she occasionally does. Most of the time she is nice to us. Sometimes she yells the house down at us and calls us names. I discussed this problem with my sister, and she said I was being manipulated, that our daughter needed therapy, and we should cut her off and set boundaries. But how can we cut off our adored grandchildren from food and clean clothes and schools and shoes and school supplies? We are drowning. She has 2 of my credit cards, and all the charges are hers. The rest of her expenses come directly out of my checking account. Can you help? From afraid of my own daughter's temper. Dear Afraid, listen to your sister. It won't serve you, your daughter, or your grandchildren for you to sink into financial ruin. Write a budget for yourself and be very upfront with your daughter about what the limits of that budget are. Set up external boundaries. If you choose to keep paying her credit cards, lower the limits so that the credit card companies won't approve charges that exceed them, for example. She may argue that you have the money and should give it, but without putting too fine a point on it, it seems clear that you don't have the money. You are borrowing against your house and in a lot of debt. This isn't simply a matter of you choosing to let your grandchildren go without. The money isn't there. Her anger is misdirected. Indeed, it does seem manipulative. Regardless, it's not solving any problems. If she can't engage with you civilly, you have to set a boundary there too. If reducing your support means that your grandchildren go without clean clothes, there's a larger issue in the system here that you can't solve on your own. But there are many steps before that. Netflix is not a requirement, for instance. The second car may not be necessary. A financial advisor or a free budgeting program can help you identify some places to cut. Dear Eric, I'm 40 years old. I have 3 teenage daughters and have been married to my new husband for almost a year. I was recently prescribed a pair of glasses just for reading. My husband thinks I look fantastic in them and has asked a few times if I would consider wearing them all the time. I did order blended bifocals so that I could keep them on at the office, so I really could comfortably just leave them on. Personally, I feel I'm more attractive without them and to make me look older. I can't decide what to do. Should I continue wearing them only when I need to, or should I give them a try for a couple of weeks as my husband has suggested? From Glasses Half Full. Dear Glasses, it's lovely that your husband is being supportive and is free with his compliments and requests, but what's most important with regard to your appearance is that you feel comfortable. So if you only want to wear the glasses when you need them, don't give it a second thought. He can learn to see it as a special treat. It's great that he thinks you look fantastic, and I'm sure you do. But if you start wearing them for him and you don't feel great about it too, it might sour the experience. Better to let the glasses do what they're intended to do, help you read. Anything else is just an added benefit. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. What happened? What's next in U.S.-Canada trade war? This is from PolitiFact. The United States and Canada, for generations among the world's closest allies, have slid into full-blown trade war in recent days as long-running negotiations stalled. Although the nation's trade talks seem sudden, the neighboring countries have been at loggerheads for much of President Trump's second term, as he has played economic hardball on trade. Trump has already imposed U.S. tariffs on Canadian automobiles, aluminum, and steel. In July, he threatened to impose new tariffs on Canada because its wildfires were sending smoke into the U.S., and in July, he said a new round of 50% tariffs on hundreds of goods would take effect in 30 days. That pushed negotiations into high gear. In recent days, both sides blame the others for making last-minute demands. The Trump administration rejected Canada's insistence on lower tariffs on heavy trucks, promoting Canadian and long French language content in streaming services, subsidies for publishing and films, and French language labeling of products sent to Canada. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer told CNBC on August 24th, "We offer them the best access to the United States of any country in the world. It certainly doesn't make economic sense, but they came in and said they wanted more, and we weren't prepared to do that." The same day, Trump wrote on Truth Social, Canada has been ripping off the United States of America for years. Their ridiculously high tariffs on our farmers and farm products has made life impossible for these great American patriots and has long created a $60 billion deficit between our two countries. Not sustainable and not anymore. All caps. What products are affected? The goods subject to the newly imposed tariffs are a modest subset of the cross-border trade, representing about $20 billion of the $382 billion in Canadian goods bound for the United States. Still, about 500 products are affected, including alcoholic beverages, dairy products, and flowers. Although some U.S. tariff targets are symbolic, such as hockey equipment, others could have a significant economic impact in the United States, such as plywood, a key component of housing construction. The U.S. does not have enough plywood to meet construction demand, so it will have to continue to source plywood from Canada, said Ross Burkhardt, a Boise State University political scientist who specializes in trade policy. This will make construction costs more expensive, and in combination with the higher cost of mortgages, this tariff can potentially have a major impact on housing affordability. Collapsed trade talks also mean existing U.S. tariffs on Canadian automobiles, aluminum, and steel will remain in place. Canada is teeing up retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods effective September 8th. Prime Minister Mark Carney has said the moves will likely affect steel, dairy, appliances, agricultural equipment, pulp, and paper electronics. The tariffs could be challenged in U.S. court. The Trump administration imposed them under Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930, an authority that has not been used before, and some legal experts told Political Effect they think it could be overturned in court. Already, the Supreme Court threw out earlier round of Trump tariffs based on a different law. Could tariffs impact midterm elections? Of the 8 most competitive U.S. Senate races, 6 are in states where Canada is the top trading partner: Georgia, Iowa, Maine, Michigan, North Carolina, and Ohio. If there's any economic fallout in these states, particularly for small businesses which are less able to adapt than big companies, campaigning Democratic candidates are likely to cast blame on the Republican presidents. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. New NASA telescope to probe dark energy and dark matter. NASA is preparing to launch its next flagship space observatory, one that scientists plan to use to investigate some of the universe's biggest mysteries, including dark energy and dark matter, while also testing gravity at vast scales and hunting for planets beyond our solar system. The launch of the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, a roughly $4 billion project, is planned for Sunday at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, with the observatory to be lofted into orbit aboard a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. The launch comes 9 months ahead of schedule, according to the U.S. Space Agency officials. Roman is the follow-on to the Hubble Space Telescope, launched in 1990, and the James Webb Space Telescope, launched in 2021, and has capabilities that can expand on the knowledge gained by those pioneering observatories, both of which continue to operate. The new telescope's panoramic view of space and its rapid survey speeds offer the opportunity for scientists to study the cosmos as never before, with wide field surveys examining its structure, composition, and evolution. Roman's vast reach will allow us to find the weird, the rare, and the unusual, Julie McEnery, Roman's senior project scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland, told reporters. Roman's primary instrument combines exquisite performance and sensitivity with the ability to quickly and effectively survey the large regions of the sky, McNerney said. The telescope's main survey will take more than a year, she said. The survey will contain over 2 billion galaxies and enable us to study how the structures in our universe, the stars, the galaxies, the clusters of galaxies, grew and evolved. We'll also measure how our universe has expanded over time. And these are the keys that will allow us to unlock the fundamental nature of dark matter and dark energy and the fabric of the universe itself, McNerney said. The Big Bang event, roughly 13.8 billion years ago, initiated the universe, and it has been expanding ever since. Scientists in 1998 disclosed that this expansion was actually accelerating with an invisible force called dark energy as the hypothesized reason. The universe's contents include ordinary matter, stars, planets, dust, gas, and all the familiar stuff on Earth, as well as dark matter and dark energy, whose physical nature remains unknown. Ordinary matter represents perhaps 5% of the contents. Dark matter, known for its gravitational influences on galaxies and stars, may represent about 27%. Dark energy may represent about 68%. The key questions are: is dark energy simply a property of empty space that remains constant over time, or does it evolve in time? Cosmologist Mustafa Ishak of the University of Texas at Dallas, a member of Roman Scientific Collaboration, told Reuters. The recent results from the DESI, Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument, collaboration indicate tantalizing hints of a time evolution of dark energy. Could the observed acceleration instead indicate that our theory of gravity needs modification on the largest scales? Answering these questions is one of the most important goals of modern cosmology, Ishak said. Physicist Albert Einstein in 1915 presented his theory of general relativity explaining gravity, and it remains fundamental. Roman will map how galaxies cluster and how matter bends light through a phenomenon called gravitational lensing. These measurements allow us to test whether Einstein's theory remains valid across billions of light years or whether modifications to gravity theory are required, said Ishak. This is important because it addresses one of the most fundamental questions in physics. What law governs the universe on its largest scales? To date, more than 6,350 exoplanets, planets outside our solar system, have been discovered as scientists search for evidence of potential life beyond Earth. Roman will conduct one of the most comprehensive searches ever for exoplanets. It is expected to discover thousands of new ones and provide the first statistical census of planetary systems similar to our own. It also will demonstrate new technology to directly image some relatively nearby exoplanets. After launch and separation from the rocket, the telescope will travel toward a location called Lagrange Point 2, situated about 1 million miles from Earth, about 4 times the distance to the Moon. Webb also resides at this orbital location. Hubble is in low Earth orbit. Roman's mission is planned for 5 years, though NASA said the telescope may have enough fuel for 5 additional years. President Trump's administration tried during both his first and second terms to reduce or eliminate funding for Roman, but Congress preserved it. The telescope is named for Nancy Grace Roman, NASA's first chief astronomer. She died in 2018 at age 93. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Legislators question Kennedy on vaccine settlement. Washington. A group of U.S. senators said Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s recent explanation of how he disposed of a financial stake in litigation involving Merck's Gardasil vaccine conflicts with earlier answers he gave in written testimony and federal ethics filings, a letter revealed by Reuters shows. The letter, sent on Monday by 4 Democratic senators, notes that Merck's earlier this year agreed to pay $50 million to settle litigation over Gardasil, which prevents cancers caused by the human papillomavirus. Before becoming health secretary last year, Kennedy, a longtime anti-vaccine activist, was an attorney of record in some of the cases. As health secretary, Kennedy oversees multiple health agencies that regulate and pay for vaccines. After his nomination by Trump, Kennedy initially said he intended to keep a 10% fee of any settlement involving Gardasil cases. He referred to the Wisner Baum law firm, which has represented dozens of plaintiffs, met with concerns from Democratic U.S. Senate Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and other lawmakers during the confirmation process. Kennedy then said he would hand over his financial interest in vaccine litigation to his son. Last month, the senators asked whether Kennedy's son received the health secretary's share of the Gardasil fees, and if so, how much money that represents. They wanted answers to why Kennedy did not commit to recuse himself from the U.S. Health Agency decisions involving Gardasil or their other policy making around vaccine litigation. In response, Kennedy said in a social media post earlier this month that neither he nor anyone else in his family have received a penny from the Gardasil settlement. Before taking office, Kennedy said he relinquished any interest in potential Gardasil fees back to the Wisner-Baum law firm. Kennedy also accused Warren, along with media outlets, including Reuters, of inventing lies to besmirch him for standing up to the pharmaceutical industry. In the letter on Monday, Warren and 3 other lawmakers pointed to Kennedy's ethics filings with written answers provided to the Senate Finance Committee last year, in which the secretary said he would hand any Gardasil fees to his son. The senator's staff could find no subsequent filings with different information, the letter said. Kennedy's recent statement, the letter said, appears to indicate the information he previously provided is no longer accurate and suggests that you have either modified your ethics agreement or stayed from it altogether. An HHS spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for comment. When asked last month about the prior letter from lawmakers, an HHS spokesperson initially did not comment and then later pointed to Kennedy's social media posting. The senators asked Kennedy on Monday to explain why he certified in an ethics form that he would transfer his stake to a family member if that had not happened. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends Gardasil as a routine immunization for 11 and 12-year-olds to prevent cervical and other HPV-linked cancers. Earlier this year, the CDC attempted to change its guidance and said U.S. children should receive a single dose of HPV vaccine rather than the 2-dose course marketed by Merck and approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. A federal judge blocked that move. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. From the Political Notebook, there's a couple articles here, folks. Beijing warns U.S. on Iran sanctions. China threatened to retaliate against the U.S. and signaled it won't back away from its cooperation with Iran after the Trump administration's latest sanctions targeted businesses in China and Hong Kong. Speaking on Tuesday in Beijing, Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian gave China's first official reaction to measures announced by Washington, saying it opposes unilateral sanctions and warning they risk worsening conflicts. The most urgent task is to de-escalate tensions and return to negotiations, he said. When asked about Beijing's response to the steps taken by the U.S. against Iran and threats made against its trading partners, Lin reiterated that China would act to protect itself. China's cooperation with Iran has always been conducted within the international framework and should not be interfered with or undermined, he said. China is closely monitoring relevant developments and will take all necessary measures to firmly safeguard its own interests. Hours earlier, the U.S. Treasury Department unveiled a package targeting dozens of individuals and entities as part of what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent described as Operation Economic Outcast, a broader campaign aimed at severing Iran's remaining financial lifelines. China buys the bulk of Iran's oil, and it was the second largest trading partner in 2025, behind the United Arab Emirates. And Trump says he may rename Lake Ontario. President Trump said Tuesday that he was considering changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America and denied that a rift over French language requirements contributed to a breakdown in trade talks between the U.S. and Canada. The United States is giving serious consideration to changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America, and that we don't expect to be doing much business with Ontario any longer, Trump wrote in a post on Truth Social. One of the 5 Great Lakes of North America, Lake Ontario borders both the Canadian province of Ontario and the state of New York. Asked about Trump's comment, Canada's minister responsible for U.S. trade, Dominic LeBlanc, said Canada would not respond to social media posts by the U.S. administration. We decided as a federal government months ago not to respond to sort of the daily social media posts of either the president or his cabinet secretaries, LeBlanc said. Such a move is unlikely to have any is unlikely to have any practical impact on resolving the trade war started by the president. Trump is also struggling to end the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran that he launched earlier this year, which has driven up global energy prices. Trump's threat comes after he issued an executive order in 2025 to rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, August 26, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella
and Larry Beanon. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading